It's very wobbly, as you can see. Trying to find an angle that looks good. Let's go. Oh, whoop, 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 will you whoop. I think this might be where it was. There we go. It's midsummer, so let's talk about Carl Larsson, a very important Swedish artist that I'm not sure if he's well known at all outside of Sweden. Possibly if you are a Swedophile, which stop that. He's not, I would say, he's not a personal influence on me, but if you're Swedish, you know him, and he is a good painter. He is one of those painters, artists that coming around in the sort of late 1800s, he kind of encompasses, becomes, personifies, makes images out of the ideal, I just got coffee in my mustache, ideal, sort of idyllic Swedish life. He is the artist that many Swedes think about, knowingly or unknowingly, when they sort of think about the Swedish national spirit, what it means to be Swedish. And he has, I mean, this is a thick book, as you can see. We're not going to go through all of it. We're just going to look at his aquarelles, his watercolors, particularly sort of the domestic scenes. And we're going to start off with this image. The Mina from 1892. It's a typical sort of, from that time, you get occasionally this kind of more interesting frames. As you can see, this has this curve up here. It has this little bar here in the middle, and it actually used intentionally or consciously. You should see that the boy here, he is leaning against this bar. It becomes almost like he's breaking out of the frame almost. But otherwise you have a very domestic scene. You have the house here, the red house, done in sort of natural romantic style. The woman with the children, and there's some goose here in the background. There's a dog here. There's not too much to say about this painting. Obviously it has this kind of lightness of color because it's a watercolor, and the way he paints with watercolor, he does the proper way of painting with watercolor, which is to not use a lot of color, to sort of let the whiteness shine through, the whiteness of the underlying material shine through the canvas or the paper. And this is a private possession. It's lovely. You know, I don't know. I don't really know what to say. I mean, if you have this on a wall, you're gonna look at it anytime, and you're gonna see the sleeping dog. Again, let's look at the sleeping dog. Look at this hero, a fabulous dog here, and you're gonna see the goose, and you're gonna go, ah, pleasant. But it still has a slight element that I would say makes it kind of interesting. I do like the frame, the way that the frame is used. That makes it stand out. I do like the architecture on the house because it is done in a sort of national romantic style, which was popular in Sweden at the time. This building, this architectural style, but that is also something you have to keep in mind. This is not a traditional sort of building. This is what would be intentionally quite new. And a lot of what Carl Larsson is, even though you're going to see a lot of rural scenes in the Carl Larsson, this is very much a new invention. This is actually would go quite hand in hand with the arts and crafts movement of Britain, which is a reaction against industrialism, against the new sort of metropolitan way of living where everyone is in the city. People want to get back out into the countryside. But people are forever changed by the Industrial Revolution. They can't go back to the old rural life. And even the sort of old rural life that they have in mind is a romanticized view. So really, what they sort of cling for something old, but they're also making something new in the process. And Carl Larsson is a good example of that. Let's sort of move a little forward. I can show you this. This is a little bit more, this is less typical of an image, but it's called Sunday's Rest. It's a watercolor from 1900. This is just kind of an interior of his house, which I'm gonna show you pictures of later. He almost becomes just as famous for his house in Sweden as he is for his works. But you can see there's a detail of the house. There's art on the walls there. You can start seeing some of the furniture. It kind of looks superficially quite, an old style, but when you look at it further, you realize that this is a bit of a mismatch. It's a bit of everything. It's not actually always historically accurate. There's a lot of different historical styles that are meeting each other and connecting. There's some elements of Baroque, there's some elements of Art Nouveau, there's some older styles, some peasant folk styles that are kind of meeting together in a way that evokes the past, but actually, because it's a combination of so many different things, it ends up being its own thing. I do like this image. This is Karin och Esbjörn, so Karin and Esbjörn. This is just a picture of her seen from behind, carrying what is that? Roses or something? No. She's carrying just a water can. But there's roses in the background behind her. And there's a little boy here, you just seen barely. This little creepy doll here. And what she's wearing, she kind of looks like almost like a kimono of some sort. Again, it's this kind of, superficially it looks just like quaint rural scenes. But when you dig into it, you kind of sense that there's a lot of different influences on these people. Like her hair here. This is not a traditional sort of Swedish outfit, a Swedish way of dressing. This clearly takes inspiration from elsewhere. And can show you, there's a lot of scenes. These images are slightly smaller. I can show you this one. This is frukost i det gröna, breakfast in the green. And it's a image. It does this thing that I mentioned earlier, I think with Hopper book. I hate it when art books, put one image across 2 pages like this, because you get this bit in the middle here that distorts the middle of the painting, which I absolutely loathe. But as you can see, this is a nice sort of birch forest, and the people there in the table preparing for breakfast, presumably. Or I don't know, actually, frukost means, I say breakfast, it could mean lunch at this time, I don't know. In Danish, frukost still means lunch. So I'm not sure if frukost meant breakfast yet at this point in Swedish, or if it meant lunch. In any case, you have a lot of nice details. You have a dog, again, here. You have people dressed in sort of Sami wear with musical instrument in the middle there, suggesting, well, I'm not sure if that they maybe had some Sami visitors at this point, but I love the birch tree forest. Birch trees are, I'm not sure if people know this, or, well, even Swedish people know this, but the birch trees very much associated, like, they are very Northern European symbol. Birch trees are important to a lot of Scandinavian art, a lot of Eastern European art as well. And birch trees are, lovely, and especially when they appear in their own sort of little forest, these kind of white trees. I always love birch trees, and here you can see sort of birch trees used to their kind of full extent. Obviously, you have the woman here dressed in white, tying herself to the birch tree. Is there symbolism there? I don't know, but it's visually interesting. And then we're gonna hop ahead in the book a little bit. We're going to look at, speaking of Christmas, these are two images. This is day before Christmas, dagen före julafton, and on juldagsmorgonen, so Christmas Day morning. I accidentally lost one of my notes, so this is all chaos. Chaos reigns. Oof. Here's the image. You can see the children here. This little creepy baby here, no, toddler, I suppose. They're all behind this giant door, listening, eager to get their presents. You get the complete anarchy reigns on Christmas morning. The boy up on the bed, he's shouting something. You had the other kids playing with their new toys. See the little boat there, model boat. These images, this is quite blatant that this kind of creates a national spirit, because you imagine people living at the time. Some coffee. But they're living at the time, they're kind of worn out by the Industrial Revolution has the benefits of the Industrial Revolution are kind of obvious to us. We can look back on it and see the changes happening. But for the people living at the time, the Industrial Revolution can feel very hectic, and they can feel, is this really worth it? And obviously there's a lot of issues at first when the government and society can't keep up with the technological developments, so a lot of people end up getting abused by the system. It's almost like we're going through something similar today. So you can see why people might have this dream of this kind of idyllic life, living more out in the country, in this very quaint home with this big family, and seeing the children just happy on Christmas. Again, you even have here a little bit of detail. Let's see, the Swedish flag here kind of continues to suggest that this is something about national spirit. And I do like the details on the house here. I do like this rooster here, painted on the wall. This one is quite nice. This is homework reading. Is from 1898. I should note that the other two are from 1892 and 1894. This is, and the one I'm going to show you is from 1898. I misspoke. But it shows a little bit more of a darker scene. It's presumably of the nightfall, or you have the boy here and the girl doing their homework, which again kind of suggests the fact that they're doing homework immediately makes you realize, oh yeah, this is not actually really that old, because these kids are going to school. These kids have homework to do. But it's a nice scene. I do like how her little face here, like she has secrets that she won't tell you because it's her secrets. But again, you see also a little different influences. Like, what is this here? What is this pattern here supposed to be? It looks quite almost Baroque, but it certainly doesn't look like something sort of regular country house would have painted on their wall at this time. Which, again, kind of goes to show maybe this is something more modern. I could just show you this because this is a Names Day celebration from 1899. This shows some of the older kids in the family getting dressed up in lily pads, and with the one putting on a wig and a fake beard, celebrating one of the younger siblings, presumably on their name day. This is a tradition I don't know anything about. This is not a tradition that lives on in Sweden, but it's just intriguing. And this is also, the late 1800s is also a period where a lot of our age-old traditions really come into being. A lot of, especially I think people notice about Christmas, like a lot of Christmas celebrations are not that old. A lot of those celebrations comes from the late 1800s. Like something like Charles Dickens' Christmas story, Christmas Carol, sorry. The reason that becomes such a big thing, and the Dickensian Christmas becomes like an image many English people, British people, English speakers have. That's what Christmas is supposed to look like. But of course, as you know, Dickens is not really. He came from Victorian era England. He's not that old, and a lot of those traditions, a lot of the things that he wrote about, is what becomes people's idea of Christmas. And the same with, the idea of Santa Claus is not that old of a figure. It's not true that Santa Claus was invented by Coca-Cola, as some people think. But it's also probably not completely untrue that Coca-Cola had a part in popularizing Santa Claus, making Americans, at least American households, want to have Christmas, Father Christmas, Santa Claus as a sort of main focal figure point on Christmas celebrations. Let me see. Let me move on a little. This one is. There's a few here, but I will show you this one. This is Suzanne and another. You can see here's Suzanne. Probably she's dressed in blue. She's on a blue chair. It's quite good use of color here because the blue makes you focus very much on her, seeing as everything else is so white. And then you can see she is in the process. She's holding a paintbrush. She's in the process of painting decorations here on the top of the house. And here's this man doing something presumably similar outside. So it comes like a mirroring thing here. And that's quite lovely. And it's a lovely, a lot of Carl Larsson's, he paints his own family, he paints his own children. And a lot of it is about their sort of home and the home that they're working on. It's nice to see the young woman here partaking and getting to add her own touches to the home. And seeing her, being compared to the man here, the idea that this is a family, we're doing things together, and I, as a painter, master painter, I am Carl Larsson. Yeah, I'm gonna teach my daughters to paint, and compare them to, this man who's doing decorations, presumably outdoors, outside. It's a nice sort of. It shows also the spirit of the era. This kind of burgeoning. It may be inaccurate or historically inaccurate to sort of describe this as social democratic, but it kind of shows the beginnings of that sort of social democratic era in the early 1900s in Sweden, where the idea is that, well, we can all pitch in, or we can all do something. And let me jump ahead a little bit. There's some Christmas picture here, but I would like to show some summary pictures, seeing as it is closer to summer. I'd like this here. This is Karin vid stranden och min gårdsplan. This is from the early 1900s, so 1908 and 1905. Kind of shows more of a scene here with Karin. She's on the beach here, but it's not really a traditional beach, but there's water here and there's all the flowers and the little tree here. Someone on a boat. See this scene here of the outside house with this bench here. Kind of looks like it's leaning a lot back, but you're supposed to, sit in it and sort of sunbathe. And there's some more plants going on, more trees. There's not a lot to say about it, but it kind of shows. I do like this because it shows. I always love plants in drawing. I always love, that's when I sit down and doodle, I always draw flowers and I like all these little details, clearly well observed. But it shows this kind of, he obviously has, Carl Larsson has been sitting out in his garden or out by the plants and just let his mind wander and just draw on what he sees. There's also a little hidden detail here, if you may not have noticed. It's a dog. A dog! I love hidden dogs. That's my favorite genre in art. But, and I can show you this one. I should show you this one just to make it equal between dogs and cats. Here's a cat. And again, like here's one of his daughters, presumably with a canvas, being doing painting herself. Like this is a family that paints. This is there is this. If you are the sort of person who has a very romantic ideas of families and big families where everyone gets together and everyone, is part of a team, this seems lovely to you because, of course, I would love to be the master artist with 100 kids. Everyone is doing their own art and learning to do art, and you're gonna be this, you're gonna be this patriarch of this great clan of artists. I suppose that fantasy is great for some people. You could say that it's also slightly constricting. Maybe you don't want to be an artist if you happen to used to have a famous artist dad. But and I also, because I have one sister, I'm not come from a huge family. I sometimes see people coming from huge families, and I feel like that seems a little bit. I don't know. I have enough trouble with one sibling. I wouldn't want to have 10 siblings or even 5 siblings. Well, I'll show you. This is also I can show you because this is another example of some slight experimentalism. This has 2 portraits, a princess and a valpojke, so it's a herder's boy. And it has a wood relief painted sort of gold, put together like this. And this has some slight Klimkian tones. You can sort of get a sense of that Art Nouveau style. And I do like the slight experimenting. There's a lot of interesting stuff in the late 1800s of experimenting with frames, experimenting with presentation. And I think that has largely gone away these days when you look at a contemporary art gallery. The frames are going to be quite simple. There's not going to be a lot of funny business going on with the frames. The idea today is that you want to focus on the painting. And that's also why, in a lot of contemporary galleries, you will see how the walls all painted white. It feels so much more clinical in some ways. I do like the embrace of the ornamental that you get in the late 1800s. And I do think we miss that somewhat in contemporary art. I would like to see that more. But in any case, let's move on. And this is their home. I'll show you this one. This is called the cottage. And it's an image of their house. It's all covered in green. If you are Swedish or Scandinavian, I suppose, if you are filthy Norwegian or Danish, you may recognize, that's something that you always bring up as a Scandinavian. People always imagine the winters. Oh, the winters must be so terrible because they're so cold. And no, the winters are actually not that cold. We actually have relatively mild winters compared to a lot of parts of the world. The horrible part of the winters is that they are so dark and so bleak because we have so much forest around us, and all the forests, lose the leaves. The winters can be quite bleak looking and very dark. We don't get enough sunlight. But in the summers, when we get more sun and all the trees, all the bushes, everything just goes into full bloom, the north of Europe, Scandinavia, becomes so green, so impossibly green. And you recognize this is just a taste of it. This is not even, this looks like it could be even in like the pre-summer or late spring. But you get those scenes where you go and you see houses in the sort of out more in the country, or in some more suburban places that are less in the city, and you get those sort of houses all covered, all surrounded by these big green clouds. So that kind of encompasses something like that for Swedes. I think I can show you this one. I'll show you all of these. This is the cat again, and all the hens there. Again, this idea, if you're in that industrial revolution in the city and you're feeling like you are, you want to get back out in the country, this is, the sort of dream image. This is something that I'm sure many people today in the internet era sort of dream that could be their life, owning a bunch of chickens, and a cat out in somewhere more rural, and just connect with something seemingly more human. Back then it would be the beginnings of mass media. Now it's the heights of an extreme internet era mass media. There's a dog here again. This is the same dog as previously. Obviously he paints his own pets as well. Here's an interesting one. This has some decorations up on the wall, but this is interesting because you can see there's some Asian art here. Seemingly, maybe not actually Asian, because it almost looks. No, actually, that looks more. It looks Asian inspired though, but it looks like it would be a Western artist making it. But there is one here that I want to show you that does have more explicitly Asian art, a famous sort of Asian piece. I'm gonna go through some images here. You have to be patient with me to try and find it. I think we're going to end soon as well. Maybe I'll have to jump ahead to the saved image. There's more to Carl Larsson than this, but well, actually, I'll just show you. I'm getting lost. Let me show you this one, because this is one I hinted at in the last video. This is one of his more famous pictures in Sweden. You have even the Swedish Three Crowns of Sweden, which is the Swedish national emblem. And you have this very sort of bright summer's day. You imagine the little girl watering the flowers there. Very quaint, very pleasant. There's not much to this picture otherwise, I wouldn't say. Dog. But I wanted to show you some of the more explicitly Asian stuff, but I can't find it now. But obviously a lot of these images are inspired by Asian art that's coming into Europe. The Asian art market, particularly this sort of Japanese art, when Japan opens up to the West and Japanese art comes into contact with the West, that has huge impact on our artists living at the time. The artists around this era, so late 1800s, become mad for collecting all sorts of Japanese prints. That has a huge impact. I'm not finding there is one image that he painted, one of his paintings here, that has one of these Japanese artworks in it. I can't find it now, so but I think we're going to finish up. There's so much more to talk about because this is a huge book, but now we're seeing more sort of rural scenes. But I'll show you. This is why not actually I'll show you this painting. This is this is a pastel painting. This is quite a nice one of woman here, Karin, with a child, so his wife and a child. It has this sort of nice facial expression, is nice vibe to it. It feels kind of peaceful, but also very sort of lively, and the light shining on her eye contact, I think, really works. It has that vibe that I like with portrait art. Good portrait art you should feel like a connection with the person you're looking at. Like there should be a feeling of, I am actually looking at the person here. I'm sharing eye contact with someone. This is not just a graphic representation of a person. This actually is someone I'm connecting with. And I feel as if this painting does that well. And it's not quite, you can't quite put into words what it is that makes a portrait like that work. Because it's not necessarily about realism. There's something in the way you draw someone's eyes. But then in the book, there's a lot more I can talk about. He has two famous paintings in the National Museum in Stockholm, Midvinterblot and I think it's called Gustav Vasa tar in stone, something like that. It's sort of national image as one of sort of more pagan era Sweden. Then the sort of founding of Sweden by Gustav Vasa, which becomes the first king of Sweden. Not the first king of Sweden, but the first king of Sweden in its continuous state. Sweden has had kings going way back. The first king of Sweden, you know who that was? Supposedly, the first king of Sweden was Odin. And I'm not sure if that's historically correct, but that's what it said. That's what's supposed to be. That's supposed to be this first king of Sweden. Let me just look for a picture, maybe to end on. And on this, well, we can end on this one. This is congratulations on the Karen Day. This presumably will be Karen's name day in Sweden, and it's just one of their home. This is a congratulations card of showing the whole family. Presumably has the father, the children, the mother, all the other siblings, and the dog, and the cat there at the end. Just lovely. It's lovely to see something like this together. It adds so much humanity, and just shows that they had, fun together. Presumably, they probably had bad times as well, but this is the sort of thing that I just love the fact that the dog and the cat are included. And the cat is very small, but that's it. Happy Midsummer's Day. Ugh, I'm getting sweaty. Oh, and I feel disgusting. But that's why you like me, because you can relate to me. Boop.